council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. Jonathan, you want to go straight into our Q2 goal update? As y'all can see, we've added the Q2 goals that we set at the last work session. Added those at the bottom of your work session agenda. So go ahead and take us through those, Jonathan.
Sure. So most of them are on track. And I tried to type up some comments on the Q2 goals if there was anything of note. Recently, we had the Regional Planning and Development Commission come in and do a public hearing for the transportation analysis and study that was going on. They had a proposal. We had about 25 people that attended that event. Seemed to be very favorable. I know some of you were there. I came in on the back end of it and talked to them after the meeting. But in essence, the cost estimate's about $150,000 on an annual basis is what it's estimated right now. They would go out and act on our behalf to solicit the grant for federal funds through ALDOT to administer the program in Coffee County in Enterprise. And Wiregrass Transit would provide those services. I think the proposal they looked at were five buses or 5 vans that would be administered, and there would be something like a $3 fee in and around town. And then if they were going to go to a neighboring city or somewhere outside the city limits, there might be an additional charge. Currently, Dothan runs about 15 vans approximately through Wiregrass Transit. So based on our conversations with Wiregrass Transit and the Regional Planning Commission, that's why we came to that 5 van. So if we do budget that for next year and want to proceed, I would like to bring a proposal to the council at the next meeting, authorizing the mayor to engage in those activities and committing that we would fund it if the grant was received. So that's something to think about if you guys want me to prepare that and get it on the next council agenda. Because for this grant cycle, the Regional Planning Commission would need to go ahead and apply for the grant sometime in May. And then if it was awarded, their goal would be to be in operation by October 1 here in Enterprise.
So I guess why don't we, Scotty? You still feel good about this, provided that everything we've been presented comes to reality. Greg, you got any comments, thoughts?
The only comments I have is it seems like that there's quite a request for this across the city, way more than I ever thought there would be before joining the council, and now hearing from a lot of constituents. I think it's something that people want. So if we have the funds to do it, I think maybe we ought to take a look at trying to provide that.
Eugene, your thoughts?
I was at the meeting, and I'm certainly in favor of it, but there was a lot more questions at the meeting than there were answers. When Jonathan said a $3 fee, that's one way. And then they talked about if you're going outside the city limits. Well, the health department, they said, is that in the city limits? So there's a lot of things to work out, but in the long run, I still feel like it would be the best thing for and they ask about questions like, people who were not able to pay. And like the health department will know if they could get vouchers to give to their people. So there's a lot of things to work out on it.
Okay. But in general,
I'm in favor of it, yes.
Sonia?
I wasn't in attendance at the meeting, but just what I've heard is something that I think the citizens want. I agree with Eugene. We're going to have to work out some kinks, just like we do just about anything else. But I think it's something worth us proceeding. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like we've got consensus on it. I for one, my hesitation has always been, I thought it was too big of a cost, but it looks like we found a path to where we can really get the city's cost down to a very manageable number. If you and Leanne agree with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, just right now, I would think that that's something we could incorporate into the budget. I will say the beauty of it being contracted out like this is that our risk is extremely low for the upfront costs. Building a maintenance facility, for instance, which you would need to do if you had your own public transportation thing, and then buying the vans, advertising and hiring for the drivers, the dispatch, all that stuff, and trying to run those programs. And then let's just say we have a lot of need for it now, and we think, hey, this is great, public wants it, but it's not successful, or we find 5 vans is too much. We can always scale that back year to year with a program like this. Or if it's very successful, we can ramp it up. So I do think that there are advantages, and that for at least for this entry year, I think it's something that we could budget.
All right. Sounds like we're ready to proceed with that then, if that's what you were looking for.
Yes, sir. I'm still waiting to hear back from what we term the animal welfare advocates, but talking about animal control and the potential of working out some kind of no-kill arrangement. So when I get more information on that, I'll continue to brief the council. The wayfinding signage plan that you authorized the mayor to execute has been executed, and we've got an initial meeting set up with the committee. Mariah, mayor, myself, and a few others here at City Hall to talk about a way forward and try to get you within the Q2 a cost estimate for that citywide plan. The Land Bank and Redevelopment Authority options, we had a phone call with legal counsel, and those funds were budgeted to do that in this year. If you recall, dealing with the Land Bank, Redevelopment Authority, and other nuisance properties, we had budgeted a little bit extra in our legal fund under admin for this year. So still feel good that we're on track within Q2 on that. The 3B paving project, I think Barry may talk a little
over the
fire chief stakeholder meeting. I skipped over it because I don't really have an update for it, but I think we're on track with that. We just don't have a meeting set up yet, or none that I'm aware of. And then the 3B paving project, the Methodist Church parking lot's all that remains in that. So that was the last thing. Half of it has been completed to this point. And when I say complete, it means that it's paved. There's still a lot of punch list items that are going to be, in the mix before it's closed out, to include striping and,
I was going to say striping. I know that's one thing I've got some questions on.
Yeah, those kind of things are still done, and they're typically always done once we do kind of a QA of the work that was done. And, like on the downtown project, even when AlDOT went through, we're still finding a couple little issues with like the pedestrian areas where the sidewalk meets the street, and it's still elevated, so it's not really what I would consider, or anybody would consider ADA compliant. They're having to go back in and smooth that out and make it. So we're going to continue to work with Wiregrass to make sure that all the punch list items are done before we close out the project. And then the approval to seek bids on phase 2 of PV Park project. Obviously, the task order was done. Glenn still feels pretty confident that he can get that project ready to bid by the end of Q2. Public Building Authority initial meeting was set up. We had to deconflict several calendars on that, but it looks like the 1st of May we'll have a meeting set up with the Public Building Authority. The go, no go on the recreation maintenance building. Barry Mott may have an update for you on that, but it looks like we have some options
the Public Building Authority. Is that a public meeting, or is that how does that work?
It'll be a public meeting, yes, sir. So we'll publish notice. I think about a week out. Wastewater treatment plant consultant selected and award bid on the pickleball facility. Those are on track, and I'll let Barry update later on in the work session agenda. Spec building at the airport, those are still slated to the bid openings the first week in May. I think it's May 4th or 5th. And then the transportation plan, doing deeper dives, we still need to complete the comprehensive plan and have the council kind of dictate to us what you want to go deeper in. What are your priorities within that? So that's what we'd be looking for from you. And then the city website, I talked to Emily yesterday about this, maybe this morning. But either way, she feels pretty confident that that's on track, kind of that June, July timeframe for the city website and app to go live. And then the Joint City Water GIS project. Right now, we're coordinating a time for Alan, Barry, and Mayor and I to sit down and go over the scope of that project. And what I mean by that is, as we talked about, the city's water system is well beyond the city limits, north, south, east, and west. And so some of those funds, it would make sense to, hire the same firm and kind of when they're on a particular street in the city limits, there's water, there's sewer, stormwater on the same street, we can save a little money on economy of scale by not hiring two firms. So we need to get the scope of the contract ironed out before we go to bid on that. But we'll have an initial meeting sometime over the next week or two to have that settled.
All right, good. Looks like one thing you mentioned that we're going to need some council action on would be this prioritization of the transportation plan. So, if we're going to get that accomplished by the end of this quarter, I guess we're going to need to do a little bit of work ourselves on somehow whittling that down to a few projects.
Yeah, and what I can do is kind of before the final draft, I'll get with KPS and find out. I think we've got at least the transportation piece probably pretty close to final. I can get you copies of that to look at, and then maybe at one of the work sessions you guys can talk about that. We can pull them up on the board.
I mean, I think we can probably if we can come up with an actual list of our options, and then come up with some sort of ranking system between us and rack and stack them that way, and pull the top three off the list or something like that. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah. So if you recall, in particular on that first draft that they came here with, you had corridors that they wanted to connect, kind of what I would call like an outer ring around the bypass. Mm-hmm. So how do we connect, 27 to 167 further north off the bypass? So they gave a general route of where that could look like it might be. So if that was your priority, we would do a deeper dive to figure out exactly what that route needed to be. So I think we can do that and kind of showcase what those options are. And then we also have within that, if you wanted to have, walkability from point A to point B, well, which point A and point B, because they gave a lot of options about how to connect these low areas from like a park to downtown or something like that. But, that would be if we had an unlimited budget, we had, $100 million or something ready to go and invest in all of those areas. So the thought was, how do we, rank order these and maybe take the top one or two priorities and get those more shovel ready for, an opportunity for the council to act at some point. Because it's just an idea until we start doing the preliminary engineering analysis, get a cost estimate, those kind of things.
Okay. Any questions of Jonathan on our Q2 goals? All right, we'll move on to reviewing the agenda. That's what we're doing. So turn with me to your regular meeting agenda package. So we've got, of course, roll call, opening prayer, and pledge of allegiance, approval of the agenda. Then we'll go to the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes from April 4th, contract billings from Wiregrass Construction for resurfacing Phase 3A and Phase 3B. Then we've got some invoices from Poly regarding the same, in addition to some small invoices there for the ADVA home infrastructure and the pickleball complex, some surveying services. Then we've got our CDBG grant, demo grant from Hopper Moore. Three Notch Partners is the TAP grant. Our Fine Getty and Associates, our state government government affairs contract services, and then some travel requests from the police department and a request to dispose of inventory from the police department. Yes, sir.
Quick on that, talking to Brandon about the piece of property, the Braun Century Series lift, that last one that we're requesting for disposal. Harry that works at the city shop, it was from an old bus that was donated to us by Parks and Rec, and that bus is going to be our new crime scene lab. It had a lift on it. The lift we can't use. We've looked at it. There's nothing else we can do with it.
So this is like a handicap?
Yes, sir, for the
wheelchair
bus.
ramp?
Yes, sir. It was a handicap lift, and he asked if we're going to dispose of it because we were taking it off. Can he have it for the church, his church? I talked to Rayner. Rayner said he wanted me to bring that up to you. That was my intentions is if you vote to have it disposed of, I'm going to give it to the church so he can use it for parts for their elderly bus. So there'll be a letter that they accept it as is with no warranty or no promise to the
Rainer, do we need to explicitly approve that, or?
Well, we've done it both ways. Y'all have done it both ways. It would be better if you could say we approve of the donation to the church. That would be the better, of course. No question.
So, request to dispose of inventory equipment as follows. So, police department, do we know the name of the?
Yes, sir. I've got
church?
the name too.
Does anybody have any heartburn over that?
Sorry, just, you said Parks and Rec, but actually it came from the senior center.
That's,
Okay.
Yeah, it was from the seniors.
That it was actually turned over to the city, state, so we have responsibility to do our lots.
Yeah.
That's when we decided to keep more lots out of the house.
Yeah, if you'll just give me the name of the church, I'll write that into the
Yes, sir. Give me a minute. Let me-
consent. Just get that to me by 6 o'clock. Then we'll have recognition of the beauty queens from the mayor, and some police promotions from Chief Moore, privilege of the floor, and staff reports. Then we will roll into old business. We've got a public hearing for the NERAC. Am I saying that right? Does anybody know? NERAC? Scotty? NERAC LLC rezone. So that is the one on Sylvan Drive and the bypass. So we'll have a hearing on that. Anything to discuss in work session? Or, I mean, obviously we're going to have hearings. So.
I'd just like to update the council that we have not heard any negative feedback about this. Everything's tracked like it should.
Sorry, Jonathan, I can't hear you.
No, it's no problem. I was saying that we received no negative feedback on this or any public comment of any kind on this. So we don't have any issues with it.
All right, then we've got the CDBG demolition project phase 5. Review and consider bid recommendations. So, you got something to add, Barry? Looks like we're staying with the same contract.
It is. We've got a couple contractors that are giving us repeated bids on this. This is one of the previous contractors that have won another phase of this project. This is phase 5, and we will have a little bit of money left. So we are putting together a phase 6 that David Ewing is going to be going out for bid. And the plan right now is we've got a slate of properties to be demolished that we think will possibly exceed our funds. So what we're going to do is we're going to bid all of them and then actually do deductive alternates and to get it back within the grant money that we have available. So that should be coming to you shortly, like 30 days probably, to have phase 6 in your hands. And that will probably be the last phase under this grant with CDBG, and then we'll reapply for that money for the next grant cycle.
When would the next grant cycle be?
So according to David, we had to have it into the state by the end of March. So we missed this cycle. So it'll be March of next year is when it'll be in. And the funds actually get applied. I think he said June of that year. So it'll be June of 24 before the next.
Be the soonest we could get him.
Be the soonest that we could get the next grant cycle if we want to apply CDBG those funds for another demolition project.
So obviously, if we wanted to award the bid for more than the grant funds and we chose to fund that would be an option too.
It is, and I've talked to Rayner about that. We're able to do that if y'all want to, but I want to give you a way when I bring it to you that you could keep it within the money, or those are the houses that were approved by ADECA to be demolished. So that's already gone through the process. So we're going to go ahead and bid the entire slate of phase 6 that we have currently approved, and then we'll bring those to you once those bids are received.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on old business? All right, moving on to new business. We've got back to, yes, sir.
I do apologize. On the rezone for the old business, I did want to bring it to your attention that during the planning commission meeting, we did have some opposition towards it, and I believe it was a 5-2 vote for the planning commission meeting. But since then, we have not heard any negative feedback.
Gotcha.
Was it 3-2 or 5-2? Was it? Okay.
All right, then we'll move on to new business. Review and consider the back to school sales tax holiday. Any problems with the? I mean, we typically it's something we do every year. Then we've got the Hunters Hill subdivision. We're accepting the maintenance of the streets and public easements.
We had 2 small punch list items that we talked over with the contractor, and those might actually be done today. So we're good with accepting it as it is.
No concerns. All right.
No, sir. Plus, we have a 1-year warranty period on that subdivision as well. So anything that comes up over the next year, we'll be able to cover under warranty.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
All right. So then we've got the we're just introducing an ABC license request for the Barrel Room Pop Shelf. No action will be taken on those tonight. Those will have hearings at the next council meeting. Then we'll have a request for permission to purchase benches. Mariah, you want to update us on this? I know there were some slight changes to the initial plans on this, right? Just make sure everybody's on the same page with what's going on here.
So this request is to purchase 4 benches. They're actually sponsored by the Rotary Club. So we will be making the order, and then they're reimbursing us through check. And then there was a slight difference, $46.59. That'll be paid through the downtown beautification funds, which contain the Main Street Enterprise fundraising funds.
And then there's plans to do an additional
later on. So Friends of Main Street is interested in the potential of ordering benches through the same benches. They order them themselves and then donate them to the city moving forward.
All right. Any questions, concerns on this? All right. Then we've got a request approval of a purchase order from the fire department for the seal coat and striping of the parking lot. Chief, I believe this was was this a budgeted item?
It was a budgeted item. Obviously, I enlisted engineering, and Barry has a plan as to how he would like to proceed so that we can do it under budget. And for that, I'll turn it over to him.
Right.
So the parking lot at the at Central Fire Station needs some TLC. So we looked at a couple of years back. We got prices on some seal coat products. Because of the weight of the fire truck and all that, what we did at some of the other parking lots, which is just a regular seal coat, we're going to go with a slurry seal, which is a heavier buildup. It's got actually sand in it. So we're using the same price that we had before. We could have done this as a public works project, it's under $50,000. We could have just done that, but just for transparency, I wanted y'all to know that we're going forward to do this, and we were able to work with the contractor, and it's under his budget, and it's also to slurry seal the entire parking lot and also restripe it. So it should be nice and pretty. The seal coat should last several years.
All right. Any questions on that? Any other additions to the agenda? So Chief Moore sent me here. It's going to, on this Bronze Century Series lift, his request is that after we dispose of that, to donate to the Elva Church of Christ for use in their church bus. And so what we'll do is when we approve the agenda, I'll recommend or I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of that item. So that's the way I'll request the motion. All right, back to our work session agenda. Barry, you going to give us some updates on our construction projects around town.
Yes, sir. I came prepared, first of all, if we can, to give you a quick update of the paving project. You asked last council meeting for kind of an update of where we were. So I'll start off with that, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
What project did you say?
The paving.
The
Paving.
paving project,
Okay.
just a recap of where we are from where we started through today and kind of what the future looks like.
How far back are you going here? Can you go over just a little bit more? All right, that's better. Everybody see? You see, Scotty?
So I wanted to give you kind of a quick recap of kind of where we started from. Just how we evaluated the roads to originally, the existing conditions of where they were, kind of what we've done to date, and then kind of a path forward. This is actually an original slide from the original presentation back a couple years back, but we originally drove 220 miles of road, which is about 735 individual roads. And we were documenting all those things, and we were doing that by using a high-tech van, if you remember when it was here. Ms. Rich, I see you actually in the picture, and Mayor, you're in that picture as well. But there's a very high-tech van, has lasers that scan the roads and picks up everything from how the van rolls to rutting and you name it. This has a whole computer system built inside the van. It was recording data, GIS data, so it had geolocation as well as all the things they were picking up. They took that data and analyzed it and classified it by a PCI number. And by the ASTM standards, the PCI numbers are ranked, as you see there, 1 to 10 failed, serious, very poor, poor, fair, satisfactory, and good. So when we did the original, this is a very high summary, but the current average of the roads at that time was a 52. So going back, you see 52 is at the upper end of poor on the roads. So that was a weighted average. We took the number of roads times the length of the road times that PCI and then averaged that back in so that, you know, if you had a long road that was a poor score, it weighed heavier than a road that was a tenth of a mile and a poor score. This was a breakout originally before we ever started any of the paving projects. I'm talking about before we did 1, 2, 3A, or 3B. This is kind of where we were. And you see there was a lot of roads that were in that fair category, fair, poor. Very few that were in the good category. So this was done by the number of roads. One thing that was kind of ironic with this is it fell right in with, I also did it by miles of road. And you can see as comparison. I'll go back. The graphs don't change that much. So that was kind of shocking. Normally you'll see when you do the number of roads and the miles of roads that one weighs different than the other, but in our situation it was very similar. So looking at the miles of road or the number of roads, you see a good bit of those roads were in that poor category, very poor, serious, and failed. And those were the number of roads you can see. You know, failed was 12, 32 was serious, 31 very poor, etc. Also, back when we talked about a degradation curve, how do roads deteriorate over time? So if you catch a road early during the deterioration process, it doesn't take a whole lot to bring it back up into the PCI score. But when you get down below that, about that 60 number, 65, you'll see that the curve really flattens off. So roads that fall below a 65, it takes a whole lot more to fix a 65 or less road when you talk about PCI numbers, because ultimately what you have to do is you have to mill that asphalt off and put new surface down. Sometimes you can do things like crack seal and do some minor stuff to the roads just to keep the PCI numbers up. So we knew we were heading down a path where we were going to take some significant effort to get the road number up. So how did we end up? This was a phase 1 map, and don't worry too much about it, but you can see the green lines. Those are the streets that we paved in phase 1. I'm going to click forward. Phase 2, you can see kind of the purple popping in. Phase 3, the red. And 3B, the blue. So you can, it's kind of a little bit hard to tell on that map, but we touched a lot of the city. It wasn't in one particular area. It was as much outside the circle as it was inside the circle. And here's kind of a quick recap for you. The number of streets that we paved in each one of those phases, by streets, by miles. And also I thought was kind of important to talk about the tons of asphalt that we put down on the streets themselves. So roughly 200 streets, 51 miles. And when I say miles of road, those are centerline miles. So if a road's a 2-lane road and we did it by miles, it was just down the center line of that road. So actually, if you looked at it per lane mile, you're talking about over 100 miles of individual road that we paved and a little over 51,000 tons of asphalt. Just to put this in perspective, we've resurfaced roughly 202 individual roads out of the 750. 27% of the roads and about 23% of the miles of roads have been paved in the city. So we're bouncing right on that quarter of the roads that we maintain in the city. Now that's not out roads. These are city maintained roads. So we're bouncing on about 25% of the roads, and the roads that we've tackled up to this point have been the worst roads. And if you remember when we talked about this, we worked with the water department and said if there are high risks that we pave a road and you've got a water project coming and you know that you're going to tear this road back up, I don't want to go pave it. That's the last thing I really want to do. If you go ahead and get some of your water lines fixed, then we'll take on those roads as part of the paving project. So just as a recap, I thought this was kind of important. We've spent to date $12.9 million in construction. And what did that give us? We got roughly 51 centerline miles of road, which if you compare that to a 1-lane road, you go from here to Panama City Beach or from here to the Capitol in Montgomery and a little bit of ways back. Those are roughly 80 to 90 miles away. So we've paved a lot of streets. If you look at the amount of asphalt that we've done, roughly a truck's about 50,000 pounds or about 25 tons, which is about 2,000 truckloads of asphalt that we put down on our streets in the city. Our initial PCI was a 52. With this effort that we've gotten it up to a 67. All the roads that we paved are primarily anything with a 40 PCI or less, and anything that was a low risk that we would do any damage to the waterline projects that were coming forward. So to look ahead, what do we have ahead of us? Glenn and I are currently working on what does the future look like. We went back to the original list and said how many roads are still below a 40 PCI that we haven't touched yet. And about 43 roads below a 20 still exist. And there's 122 roads that are still below a 40.
Does the 122 include the same 43?
It does.
So we're not adding this.
We're not adding those two together. That is between 0 and 40 and between 0 and 20.
Gotcha.
Of course, I've gotten lots of questions from the public going, my road is very bad, and maybe a PCI of 10, but why haven't you paved that yet? And we've had to explain that there is a plan for doing that. We're just working with the water department to get their concerns taken care of. So an immediate need, if we had a crystal ball and we could make any magic happen, if we get all the water line work out of the way, about $2 million would solve all the rest of our roads, which are PCI of 20 or less. What I've been talking to Jonathan is trying to come up with a plan after we get Glenn and the water department to give us their plan for how they're looking forward, is coming forward with some kind of a year-to-year project that we would just keep chewing at those, especially try to focus on the 20 or less, and then try to eventually get all the ones that are 40 and down, and then ultimately keep those other scores high. Don't let those get back into the situation where they're down in that very poor or failed condition. That's just a quick recap of how we got here and where we are. The spreadsheet's probably 20 pages of streets, and I didn't want to bore you with a million details, but Glenn and I are currently working through trying to get a plan with the water department. That's where we stand right now, is what does their appetite look like? I know they just awarded phase 3 or 4 of their waterline projects, and he's identified which one of those are on the list, and we're saying, okay, if those are on the list, which one of those have a PCI of less than 40? And we're working on those for what a paving project 4 would look like, so that we can bring those to you for your review and possible approval.
So our original budget, this may be, was it 16 million?
It was originally, you and I talked about somewhere in that $15-16 million to get us up to a PCI score of 65, 70. We had some good things happen, some economy of scale, because we did some larger projects. originally we talked about, do we do a $5 million job and then do we eat it at $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million a year? And we've got some economy of scale because we did some larger phases, so we got the cost down.
Jonathan, how much in so we did a bond issue for a bunch of projects, right? How much, I realize that, we might have to move some money around from project to project based on how our estimates compare to actuals, but how much did we allocate for paving and that?
We allocated about $8 million for paving, and we spent about 10.7 out of the bond money. If you recall, there's some money in a regions account early on when I came on board. We moved that money out of that account, and so I'm assuming we're probably pushing 12 total.
12.9.
That includes phase one, which was done before we did the bond.
That's true. That does include that. Okay.
So about 10.7 out of 56 million is bond money.
Okay.
I don't know that we used all bond money. We may have pulled from the general fund.
Yeah. Any other questions for? I had a couple. So traditionally, just me observing our tactics for road maintenance was always let it get down, then either just overlay or mill and overlay. So you're referencing, it looks like there's a possibility that now we can start employing some new tactics such as seal coating or slurry coating, or
That's correct.
I don't see that happening in the surrounding communities. Certainly never seen it happen here. So are our current vendors, current contractors equipped to handle that type of?
So, don't lose track that we've got roughly $7-8 million worth of roads that are in a failed condition to get done.
That are going to require
That's going to require the same thing of what we've been doing so far. The problem is if I go do them today, chances are the water department's going to come back behind us and patch it. So some of the things that I'm weighing on my mind is if I look at a road and it hadn't been patched in the last 3 years and they don't have a plan for replacing that water line, but the road's a 5 PCI, maybe we should go ahead and pave that road and take our chances. And if I lived on that road, I'd be okay with a patch there if it's full of potholes down the whole road anyway. So we've got to start tackling these roads that are medium to high risk and figuring out a game plan for how to get those paved. We've got the ones that made complete sense, the ones that were low risk, that had low PCIs, but we've got to get a little bit more creative. How do we do this? So Glenn and I are rolling up our sleeves and trying to get a game plan of how to do that. Originally, we talked about doing $1 million to $2 million paving job per year. That would last 3 or 4 years worth of paving, maybe longer than that, depending on what the council decides they want to appropriate for those projects moving forward. But that might be something we could do in-house, or we could do it as just a continuous maintenance type project. But there's always going to be roads that come up that we need to patch. We had a water failure. We had a sewer manhole that collapsed that we'll have to take care of.
But then, obviously you've got these 122 roads under 40. What about those roads that are in the 50s or 60s now, maybe above that hockey stick in the road degradation curve?
So
how do we keep them off of that?
So one of the things I talked to the consultant about was what would it cost us to go back and redrive the roads now that we've already got the streets done? That degradation curve is just a national curve of this is what typical engineers see when the roads start to fail. I'd like to see how our roads are degrading and see if that actually, do we fall into the national standard, or are they degrading faster or slower than that? And to come up with a plan to get us where we're not just repairing everything that's failed, but maintaining those roads. One of your questions before is the local vendors, are they capable of like crack sealing? And the answer to that's yes. Wiregrass, Mike Pirtle's in the back of the room. Mike's done a great job for the city for paving with Wiregrass. I know that they do crack seal and that kind of stuff. So as we see these cracks opening up on these roads, coming up with a budget to seal those cracks back up so that water doesn't get down in there and ruin the base and start causing potholes, as we see in some of our roads around the city.
Okay.
There's not a one silver bullet that solves this problem. It's basically road by road, and how do you tackle each one of them? So
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see us start I mean, even if we have some high risk roads with low PCIs, I would like us to also start focusing on some of these higher PCIs and keeping them high.
absolutely. And that's something that we have going to set up a meeting with Wiregrass. So they've driven a lot of the roads. They've seen the failures. I'd like to get input from them. They lay asphalt every single day. What are some of the things they've seen so that they could say, hey, if you would do these type of things, it would definitely help the city. There's other consultants that do that as well. And talking with Glenn and the company that actually did the original study, I'd like to see what now that we've made a huge dent into this. The goal was to get above a 60, 62. We're sitting in the high 60s right now. So that should make you feel good. We accomplished our goal, but we still have a lot of work left to get done.
Okay. Any other questions regarding paving? All right.
Beside the paving, just a couple of things. On the next council meeting, we'll get it on the agenda. We'll work with Beverly on that. We'll need to close East and West College Street for permanent striping. That asphalt has to cure for 14 days before we can do that. So we'll have it on your next council meeting for a window for them to. It'll take about 2 days to do College Street to do permanent striping on that road. The rec center is going well. We think we've come up with a solution as of today to get the maintenance building done within budget. Originally, it came in about twice the budget from just talking to the GC. So I think we may have come up with a solution that brings it in under budget, which would be a huge success for the city. That project's going well. Talked to you about CDBG. Is there any other questions y'all had on any other capital projects?
Anybody got anything specific?
We do have a couple projects that are coming to bid. Apologize. The spec hangar at the airport, that'll bid on the 4th. We've also got the pickleball courts. Those will be bid also at the 4th. Those are 1 hour apart. And then we've got the sidewalk replacement project that's on the street, and that's coming in soon as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a request from Mr. Telos, Mr. Cotter, to go into executive session regarding real estate. Do we need to add anything else to that? All right, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session regarding real estate.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I expect we'll return in about 15 minutes and address no further business in the work session. However, we will reconvene in our regular council meeting at 6 o'clock.
My name is Alan.
Hello, sir. How are you? Nice to see you. I'm Beverly Sweeney. I've heard excellent things about you. And you can put on one hell of a PowerPoint presentation too.
Which one was that?
The
Oh,
yeah, the firecrackers
we're gonna do that.
and the fireworks and oh yeah. I don't think I'll ever forget that. There's three things I think of when I think of you. Well, no, actually four. The city historian, the city water historian. You can tell me like the exact date in 1962. That's Uncle Phil. The Bo Weevil water tank, and your PowerPoint presentation with the fireworks.
You can say that my graduation
Your graduation.
by retirement next week.
You ain't retired. No, you're not. No, it's not. Shut up. You ain't going nowhere. Please don't do that. If so, I'm going with you.
And historians will win you too. The history goes with you. Lee Butler, Molly, he told me today. And he says, Al, I got a question. Okay. Well, I got stuff. Well, I don't know if I'll know or not. He said, up there at Lee and Maine Avenue,
Yeah.
across the First Baptist Church. He said, where was those gas storage tanks at? Well, that old gas station was there. Was there a gas station? I said, yeah, there was. And I said, my granny ran it for a couple of years. And I said, I got to tell him about the history and everything. He said, well, I said, in fact, I got a picture. I seen you a picture of the gas station. Well, guess what?
What?
Oh, but he was wondering where the gas tanks were in the ground. I said, they're probably out front because the water department is right almost against the back wall. Well, guess what?
What?
The picture was taken in 1960.
Okay.
Somebody standing out on Main Street took a picture of the gas station. Guess what was there? The gas truck unloading gas.
What? Are you kidding me?
I'm
Wow.
serious. I thought, how strange is that?
I know. Oh my God. Well, now that I'm thinking about something, I was going to ask you. Me and my sister were, you know, she grew up, we all grew up listening to KMX, and I remember Mr. Chick's Fine Food Factory.
I love it.
And so we were coming down whatever that road is.
Brunson Avenue.
Turn
What?
by not Sessions, Fleming's Cleaners.
Oh, Lee?
And you go, yeah, is that Lee? Yeah, it is. And you go, you know, you hit Damascus. Okay, you know Big Daddy's Barbecue?
Yes, yeah, that's wrong.
Okay,
wrong.
that is right. Okay, where was the Mr. Chick's Fine Food Factory?
It was there. Okay, you know what Christian Mission is?
Yeah.
That new building they just built. When you turn on Brunson Street,
Yeah.
they just built a new big metal warehouse
Okay,
there
okay.
about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They tore it down.
Oh, did they? Okay, because we were going through there, and she was like, "Have you ever had Big Daddy's Barbecue?" And I was like, "I think maybe once or twice." I said, "I think it's been there forever."
Yep.
And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, "I wonder if that's where the Mr. Chick's." I said, "You remember Mr. Chick's Fine Food Factory?" And she said, "Yeah."
I love it.
And I said, "I wonder if that's what that was." And I said, "I'm gonna
It
ask
is.
Alan."
It's right there on
So it's not really there anymore.
It's just they tore the whole building down. And I didn't even know that until I went there one day. They were building this new metal building.
I said, "Y'all tore a part of history." She owned that.
She tried to sell it for a long time.
Yeah.
I can't remember that lady's name. She lived over there on Auburn Drive. Star Mansion. I can't remember her name. But like I said, she tried to sell it. Nobody would ever buy it. And I loved it because if I was running late for lunch, I'd go lunch like 1:50, 1:30.
Yeah.
I'd just swing there. You go in there and get your chicken box, sit down and cool off. And just, and it wasn't
They were there
like
forever,
$5 for a snack.
Yeah.
With a drink.
Yeah.
It was so good.
You can't get that.
No,
For, you can barely get a drink for $5.
Oh,
It's crazy. See, I knew you'd know. You from you? If I have, I haven't looked at it. I was getting. What was I saying? I went to. Mine's off. Oh no, somebody turned it on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we could get the room in order. I've got 6 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. If you would, please stand with me for opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mayor Cooper is going to give the opening prayer.
Most gracious and heavenly Father, we want to thank thee for this day and the many blessings of life bestowed upon us. As we are gathered here tonight for the business of the city of Enterprise, as we move forward, Lord, help us to make the right decisions and to do the things that's necessary for our citizens. Bless each one that's represented here tonight, and honor to our queen and to our promotion of our policemen. Help us as we are in need. These and other blessings we ask in our Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, Council, you should have the agenda in front of you that we discussed in the work session prior to this meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted with one addition to the consent agenda in regards to the police department's disposal of the Bronze Century Series lift. We're going to add that after disposal, that will be donated to the Elba Church of Christ. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of the member of the City Council. And I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now recognize Mayor Cooper for the presentation of pins to the newly crowned City of Enterprise Beauty Queens.
We're going to call you forward. The mayor has the pins. You have Miss Enterprise, Ella Hogan. You're all ready, Mayor. Our next is Team Miss Enterprise, Ella Catherine Gamble. Our next is Junior Miss Enterprise, Addison James. And Petite Miss Enterprise, Charlotte Walters. Sorry, that was mine. And Little Miss Enterprise, Eloise Dow. All this pretty hair, maybe ours can come there. And Future Miss Enterprise, Raylan Gilly.
First, we want to say congratulations to these young ladies, knowing that they are going to represent us well in the various events that they will be invited to attend. So again, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, young ladies. That's the council's chairman, at least.
All right. All right. We'll now stay with Mayor Cooper and Police Chief Michael Moore for the presentation of badges to Daniel Choate and James Sanders in recognition of their promotion to sergeant.
So, real quick, before we get into ceremonies, we can get this thing moving. The two most recent promotions I've had was the promotion to sergeant. I've worked with both of them. We're on patrol together. Somebody I trained, I guess you could say. The other one, we can tell stories all day long about each other, but we can't until at least 5 years after we all retire. So, a lot of people like to know what goes into making a promotion, what takes it, how do you get to sergeant, whatever else. And it's simple. You have to have time and grade. You have to have good evaluations. You have to take a test. You have to go through the oral board. And then after that, they take all, and the longevity, how long you've been here. We do the math on all those sections, and then out of the top 5, we promote. This time I had 2 promotions open, and the 2 gentlemen in front of me came in pretty much to the top. They were promoted. One came from investigations, Sergeant James Sanders came from investigations, and he gladly went back to the road. Where he can have 4 days on and 4 days off, and his off day he had his own time back. And then Sergeant Choate made the decision to get promoted, and he's in the school resource program. He's the supervisor of the SROs. I don't know who, I'm not going to say who made the right decision, who didn't. We'll see in time. But anyway, so gentlemen, start with Sergeant Sanders, since you're sitting here to my right, and you can have whoever you come up with. So customary in law enforcement, whenever you get promoted, or you get the badge, originally you had your loved one pin your badge on. It's an honor. And so I'd like to tell you who she is and what she means to you, and then let her stab your chest. My wife, Kimberly, she has supported me wholeheartedly the last several years, and last 2 years, I couldn't have done it without her. She's my everything, and she supports me for everything I do since I met here. Absolutely. And I'm going to brag on her too, because prior to you guys getting together and making a couple, he and I were patrolmen together. That's how long it was. And then he now has decided to step up, which we all knew he'd be a phenomenal sergeant, and he has been. And I think you drove him to be better, and we appreciate that.
I'm going to ask Sergeant Sanders' family to stand, if you would, the rest of the family. All right, thank you.
Sergeant Choate, you and your whole family. So this is, like I said, Sergeant Choate has been assigned to the school resource office, where he's the supervisor. Was that that's homeschool? He knows how to deal with children, obviously. So this is the fun part when we get to decide who gets to stab that at each other. We all get to take a chance. Yep. Anyways, again, I thank you, Mayor, for having the whole family. I like his whole family to stand up as well while we're doing this. When I guess the family is really what makes this so important to us. We couldn't do what we do without the full support of our family. I know I couldn't do what I do without the full support of my family. And we appreciate you being a part of this. So without further ado, I'll allow you to stab him. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I was waiting tables in Birmingham at a school. I was really getting tired of it, wanted to do something to help out around the world. Putting in applications at every department in the Birmingham area, and I had this one application. I'm tired of this. It's just not going to happen. Just finish the essay, turn it in. Ended up transferring down here after a while. Just one little comment for her telling me to push through. Brought me down here.
Father Joe Fleming also said if you
Thank you, Mayor and Chief Moore, and certainly congratulations to Officer Choate Sanders for your accomplishment. We'll let the room clear out, and then we'll continue. All right, moving on with our agenda. Now is the time of the meeting called Privilege of the Floor, which allows any members of the public that are here tonight to address the council for 3 minutes on anything they like. I will point out we have a public hearing in old business regarding the NERAC rezone. Please don't come forward if you're here to address that. We'll do that in the public hearing portion. So is there anyone here to speak to the council tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. Do we have any additional staff reports that we didn't hear in work session? All right, we'll move on to old business, which is the public hearing and consideration of ordinance 032123, the NERAC LLC rezone. So I now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of ordinance 032123, providing for the rezone of 0.624 acres of land owned by NERAC LLC from B1 Business District and R100 Residential District to B1 Business District located at 309 Sylvan Drive. So this hearing is now open. Would somebody representing the project like to give a presentation on the project?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today and be in front of you. We do request that this property be rezoned as we expressed during the planning commission and ask that you further approve it.
All right. Any questions? All right. We may have some later, so just stick around. All right. Is anyone here that wishes to speak for the project in addition to Mr. Santoro? Anyone here to speak against the project? All right. Seeing no one, we will now close the public hearing and go to council deliberation. So I will call for consideration of ordinance 032123.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 032123. Is there any discussion?
I've got some concerns on
Okay.
it, if I can do this.
Yes, sir.
Sylvian Drive is pretty busy with not only church traffic, buses. It's close to Dolphin right there going across. I've sat at that light several times. I live over in that area. And it takes probably about 2 or 3 lights to get out of there. My one concern is the partial that is commercial right now just covers that billboard. And it's going to take out that entire house there. We need housing around the Enterprise anyways. It's a nice rental house. But it's going to come all the way up to Sylvia with that property. And the thing is there going to be a driveway coming out that way? We've got enough traffic already. And then going out on the bypass is so close right there at that intersection, especially with kids walking back and forth. The house that's right next to it, that commercial property is going to come right all the way up to Sylvia. And then the house across is going to have this, whatever it's going to be right in front of it. I was one of the 2 that voted no during the city planning. And there were some folks that came, I'm sorry they didn't come tonight, were against it. But, when you say not near my area, that just drives me crazy. And so, but this is one of those times where because of the traffic, because of the school buses, because of everything that goes up and down Sylvia, I don't think it's going to be a good fit right there. I wasn't on the council when that billboard went in. To me, that wasn't a good fit for that area because you don't see those things around in many other housing areas. But again, I was one that voted no, and I'll vote no again tonight in the area. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the council? So, Mr. Johnson, your specific concerns were where the drive is going to be, or you just don't know where the drive is going to be?
No, there was some comments mentioned that they put a buffer in there, but when you look at the current property there now, in fact, the gentleman that owns the property behind where there's a barbecue place actually owns that house, and it looks like they're just going to knock down that fence, the shed in the back, and are they going to keep the billboard? Is it going to stay right there? It looks like the property is going to come all the way up to Sylvia. They talked about a buffer. Is there going to be a street that's come out that way onto Sylvian? And then what are they going to put next to that guy's house? Is it a strip mall? Is it what? I mean, and there's already a lot of traffic across that road at Dolphin Extension or Dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just
Santora,
concerned.
Do y'all know the answers to those questions at this stage?
No, sir. No layout's been done, but we do have to come back to the planning commission for approval of the plans. And Mr. Johnson's, what he's saying, will be taken into account and brought back in front of everybody to be approved.
I mean, obviously, this is just a zoning hearing.
Yes, sir.
So the current zoning is a combination of B1 and R100, and y'all are requesting to move the whole thing to B1. Correct?
That's right. The property owner, as Mr. Johnson said, is the same property owner that owns the other B1. So we're trying to make it all tied together as one B1 zoning so that he can use the full property, but at the same time putting up some kind of buffer, some kind of restraints to not cause any problems to the residential people across the road that came out during the planning commission meeting.
Because the current B1 just covers the billboard. If you look at it, it's just a little strip that councils in the past passed it for that particular little area that covers that billboard.
Yeah,
and now it's going to be the whole thing.
And 309's there on the corner of the circle. And
the B1 covers the only strip that comes out, but also it covers the rest of that property that comes over. And so we'd be in adjacent to the rest of that, this B1. And that's the reason we're asking for this to be B1. Because all that's already B1.
Behind it.
This is existing.
Right, behind the house,
And this
where
is
that white
what we're
fence
trying
is.
to go to.
And they want to take down the house, and that white can come all the way up.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, but that existing B1 is that white fence that's right there next to the barbecue.
So this is the property that's directly on Bullwheel Circle, right?
It is, yes, sir. It is, yes, sir. It's on Bow Weevil Circle, and then it's also on, as Mr. Johnson said, it's also on Sylvan Drive. And that's the strip that comes out to Sylvan Drive, and we're just below it right there trying to add that in so that we can do more with that piece of property.
That's 0.624 acres, so about 2/3 of an acre.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Any other comments or questions? I drove over there myself and looked at it, and I mean, I guess I can sort of understand maybe people have a problem with traffic, but Sylvan is already a major cut-through route anyway, and I don't. I personally have a hard time seeing that it's going to make the traffic any worse. And what I'm more concerned about is the fact that property in that area on the circle is prime business property, and we're not making any more of it. So I think anything there on that circle ought to be able to be business. I get getting down into a neighborhood, but if it's what I'm thinking it is when I'm looking on that map, what I went over there and drove and look at, I think it's more affecting the frontage there on Bowwell Circle than it's going to affect Sylvan.
It's actually going to take that house out. So it's going to come to Sylvan. That's my concern is houses. So how far down the circle does this happen again? That was one of my concerns. Where else are there residential areas around the circle where this is going? Well, we need. I agree with businesses. We need those. God forbid we.
And I guess the other thing I have to always go to is that if the property owner that owns the house wants the house gone, that's his property to do with what he wants to. And I have a hard time telling someone what they can and can't do with their own property. So that's my position.
Well, I agree too. But the thing is we've got owners that are around there that's now going to have this, whatever it's going to be, right next to it, right in their backyard, and the house right side of it, it's going to be coming up whatever it's going to be right there, because they can't go towards Dolphin because there's not much land over that way to do anything. They have to come this way. I'm all for business, all for people come into town, but when it starts affecting a house like that,
Mr. Santora.
Just to go back to Mr. Johnson, and the
Speaking to the mic, please.
I'm sorry, sir. I believe I could speak on the behalf of my client to say that, and put it in your notes, that coming back to the Planning Commission, we wouldn't have an access out to that road.
Okay. All right. Barry or Thomas, so, obviously we don't have our final comprehensive plan, but I mean, how would this rezone align with it? I mean, obviously to Mr. Padgett's point, it is on our traffic circle, our bypass.
That's right. It is continuous zoning to be business right along the Bow Circle, right, that has frontage along the circle. One of the discussions we had with the engineering firm was, either doing on Sylvan, instead of putting more traffic on Sylvan, either having a turn off of the bypass onto Sylvan and only entrance into the property, not putting any more traffic out, or working with AlDOT to just enter it off of the Bow Circle. So, he spoke for himself and said, that they would look at not adding more traffic, but from the zoning perspective, what they're asking for matches into what the long range plan calls out. It's what KPS had looked at that property to be, which is business district along there.
All right. Any other questions of Barry?
Do we know what type of business we're talking about?
It didn't distinguish between business districts, did it? Hold on, that property.
Zoning districts.
Of course, to be clear, this is a zoning rehearing, right?
Yes, sir. So it's continuous zoning across that frontage right there. It's B1 is what the zoning is over there. KPS with the comprehensive plan that we have and the future land use map that is best. It shows like a mixed area because you have the residential neighborhood right there and you have the commercial property right there on frontage. So the commercial property would be an acceptable use for that parcel right there on there. Now, if this was something like we were trying to go 3 houses down into the neighborhood or something like that, of course we wouldn't. But because of it being on that road frontage on Bow Eagle Circle, it's an acceptable use for a business district.
So does that now include the house across the street and all those along that strip going down to
so when it comes to
across from the craft?
So when it comes to zoning, you try to use roads, rivers, natural elements as your breaks. So when you would have something like that, unless they were going to go completely, every one of those houses that's on that frontage across the street from it, unless every one of those was going to go right there, we would never recommend that be rezoned for those for that purposes, because you would be you wouldn't be breaking it up. And so since there's already B1 right there, it would be a continuous zoning across that frontage for Bow Eagle Circle.
So the break being Sylvan Drive
Yes,
there
sir,
before you get to the homes he's referring to.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion or questions of staff or the petitioners?
Well, and just to be clear, I know we all know that at such time, if the zoning is approved, they still got to come back and get all these other details.
I just don't like rezoning. Yeah, I understand that.
Yes, ma'am. They still have to come through development plans and do things like that. And we would look at if an entrance off Sylvan was the correct choice for that. I would also like to note that when the Planning Commission voted to send this to y'all with a recommendation for rezone, we had it contingent upon any type of layout modifications we needed to make. That the city could suggest those, and that's what we would do. So if we said there doesn't need to be anything coming off Sylvan, there's nothing coming off Sylvan. And so we would look at what's the best way to flow the traffic in and out and not cause any type of congestion or cause any type of issues.
So is it y'all's staff's opinion that needs to be the case, that no access off of Sylvan? Or are y'all not developed enough?
Well, we haven't looked at a plan yet of what they're looking at doing, but early in this development plan, when we start talking about what we're doing, our opinion was, and we've already conveyed that to the developer, is we don't want to put any more traffic out on Sylvan. Also, you got a house right across the street. So if you have an exit road, I wouldn't want to be sitting in my front yard or in my living room and have car lights shining in the front. So if we could make that an entrance where people could come into the development and put them back out on the circle, or just do away with that altogether. So that's why we put it into the recommendation that staff would have the ultimate say-so on how Sylvan's developed once we get farther along in the development plans. But we do not want to put any more traffic on Sylvan than we have to.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 03-2123. If there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to review and consider bid recommendation 2021 CDBG demolition project phase 5. I introduce and call for consideration of a recommendation from David Ewing, project consultant, to award the bid for the 2021 CDBG demolition project phase 5 to Hopper Moore Incorporated DBA BMI in the amount of $38,080. Other bids received are as follows: Lewis Incorporated $57,359. Do I hear a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid to Hopper Moore Incorporated. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now move on to new business. We'll review and consider Resolution 041823 regarding the Back to School Sales Tax Holiday. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 041823 providing for the adoption of the Back to School Sales Tax Holiday as per Act 2017-120, beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, July 21, 2023, and ending at 12 midnight on Sunday, July 23, 2023. Covered items relate to purchases of school purposes to include, among other things, clothing, school supplies, and computers. Do I hear a motion to adopt Resolution 041823?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now review and consider Resolution 041823A regarding the Hunters Hill subdivision, Phase 2 and 3. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 041823A, providing to accept for maintenance the streets and other public easements improvements which are expressly shown on the final plat of Hunters Hill Phase 2 and Phase 3 subdivision as public dedications, subject to the contingencies and matters as set out in the April 11, 2023 letter from Barry Mott to the Council. Do I hear a motion to adopt Resolution 041823A?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 041823A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now introduce ABC license requests for the Barrel Room. I introduce a request from Three Plates LLC, DBA The Barrel Room, for a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license located at 2200 Ozark Highway, Suite B, and call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for May 2nd, 2023. There'll be no action taken on that tonight. Now introduce ABC license requests for Pop Shelf Store 24430. I introduce a request from Doll Gin Corp. LLC, DBA Pop Shelf Store 24430 for a retail table wine off-premise only license located at 704 Boweville Circle, and call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for May 2nd, 2023. Again, no action on that tonight. We'll now review a request for permission to purchase benches from Main Street. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from Main Street Director Mariah Montgomery to purchase 4 benches from Landscape Forms Incorporated at a total cost of $12,894.59. USDA grant funds of $12,848 will be provided by the Enterprise Rotary Club, with a balance of $46.59 to be paid by the city utilizing Main Street fundraising funds. Do I hear a motion to grant this request?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to grant the request from Main Street Director to purchase these benches. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now review a request for approval of purchase order from the fire department to seal coat and stripe the parking lot. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from Fire Chief Christopher Davis for the approval to issue a purchase order to Phillips Parking Lot Maintenance Incorporated for parking lot seal coat and striping at Central Fire Station at a cost not to exceed $30,000. Do I hear a motion to grant this request?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to grant the request. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mary, you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, thank you to the roughly 400 people that came out to the AUSA luncheon on April 11th. The City of Enterprise was proud to host the quarterly event. The 39th annual All-In Credit Union Costly Truck, RV, and Boat Sale starts this Thursday at the Enterprise Civic Center and expected to draw hundreds of people. Thank you all to the city department that has contributed to getting everything ready to make sure this event is a success. This weekend is also the Pinewood Arts Festival out at the community college. The event is sponsored by Visit Enterprise. It features dozens of local artists. That event is Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow is the deadline for businesses who wish to be first to utilize the incubator downtown Enterprise. the refurbished shipping container provides a space for up and coming businesses to occupy a brick and mortar location. Barricades remain in place in downtown for the safety of pedestrians. The county asks that you not move them. Pedestrians are reminded to use the sidewalk only to cross Main Street and designated crosswalks. Speaking of safety, the fire department, with the help of certain volunteers, distributed nearly 100 smoke detectors in our community this past weekend. The goal is for every home and enterprise to have a working smoke detector. If you're a city resident and you need one, call the fire department. They will help you get what you need. I have a few key dates here I'd like to point out. The Gold Weaver Block Party downtown Enterprise is May 5th. Festival in the Park is May 6th. Congratulations to our Enterprise Queens. I know you will represent our city well. Congratulations to the 2 Enterprise police officers who were promoted tonight. We appreciate your commitment to our city. Thank you also to the families for their support. Finally, a reminder to stay up to date with what's happening in our city, visiting our website and following us on Facebook. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Rich?
Thank everyone for coming out tonight. Congratulations, Ms. Hogan, on being Crown Miss Enterprise. I know you get it from your lovely mother there. And also congratulations to our sergeants who were promoted, and everyone have a good night.
Mr. Goolsby?
Basically the same thing that Ms. Sonia said. We were happy to have our queens with us tonight. Certainly was a lovely group. And congratulations to Officer Coate and Officer Sanders. And I think it was a great project for our fire department to visit the neighborhoods and giving out smoke detectors free of charge and also installing them. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.
Mr. Paget?
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Johnson?
Thank you to all our citizens online watching. Thank you for coming tonight, and congratulations, Miss Enterprise, again, all our queens. And for the smoke detector blitz, again, kudos to all the firefighters, but to Battalion Chief Brian Beasley for heading that up and getting us out there for it. We really enjoyed it. The CERT volunteers enjoyed it. And for Sergeant Choate and Sanders, it's great. And Danny, and I got to call him Danny. Danny and I go way back. He was in my wife's youth group back in church, so I watched him grow up. And now to see him as a sergeant, it's awesome. And we've got a great fire department and great police department. And thank you to all our city workers.
Yeah, basically what all of them said. So certainly congratulations to our queens and to our officers, much deserving. And I will point out that I failed to mention at the beginning of the meeting, we recessed our work session. We're going to reconvene in work session after the room quiets down and we get everything signed. So if you wish to stick around for our work session, you are certainly more than welcome to do that. We will be going back into executive session to finish our real estate discussions. But this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.
Christy.
Yeah, certainly. We'll need to vote to go back into executive session.
Oh, well, that's
here.